Welcome everyone! As I said yesterday, I'm going to do an equipment tour today, and here we are with all of these boxes in which I'm actually storing the equipment, so let's begin. In all of the boxes on the right side, I'm actually storing the stuff which I'm using in nearly every video, and in the ones on the left, I'm storing the stuff which I don't use in every video except in one box, because in one box I'm storing all of the condensers and I'm needing a condenser in at least every one of my videos. Let's start with these boxes. In here I've got a lot of adapters, like this one I used for sulfur trioxide, stuff like addition funnels. I removed the PTFE screw in there because I want to dry it. Other adapter stuff and even things that I haven't even used yet. Even a drying tube, a funnel which I just used today for making some arsenic chemistry. It has been cleaned extraordinarily well, or else I wouldn't touch it now. Also got thermometer adapters, some silicone tubing, the thermometer thing where you actually plug it in, and the electric thermocouple. Also got one of these thermometers in there and two of these. You can use them to measure the density of a liquid, and I haven't even used them yet, but well, I'm going to use them someday. We also got one of these brushes. It's actually a really cool instrument because you can use it to clean 1 liter round bottom flasks, because you can reach every part of the round bottom flask with these. And besides that, I'm storing all of the steerfishes in there, a very tiny mortar, steerfish remover, glass wool, and a 1 milliliter glass syringe. Also some other various stuff like these clips. Okay, let's move on to the next crate. Over here we got the 2 liter beaker. This is actually my second 2 liter beaker. Hasn't been used yet once, but I haven't used the other 2 liter beaker too, because I got the first one and it broke. Never used it, just broke. I got this one, haven't used it yet, but I hope it doesn't break. I want to use it at least one time before it breaks. Here we got 1 liter and a 500 milliliter beaker, 250 milliliter round bottom flask, and one of these cork rings. A big funnel with a ground glass joint. These are definitely worth it. This is the electrode which I used for nitric acid from air. Here we got a 100 milliliter glass syringe. I'm not going to take this one out of its original package because it's wrapped up really well, and I'm not going to put it back. A neon sign transformer and 2 more glasses. In this box we got more interesting stuff. Here we got 100 milliliter separatory funnel, and this one is a Liebig condenser which just broke yesterday. Broke this thing off and I cut it down. It's still usable. You can put the silicone tube right over there and you can use it, but I ordered another one which just arrived today, but I have this new one in another box. And I'm still going to keep this because if there's some chem that might go dirty, why not use a condenser that's still perfectly usable instead of a fresh one? And you also got this gas washing bottle which I use for drying chlorine and various other chemicals. Over here in the third box we got a 3-neck round bottom flask, 1 liter, a 1-neck round bottom flask, also 1 liter, and a 1 liter 2-neck round bottom flask. We also got this bottle for vacuum filtrations, which has 250 milliliters as a volume, and it's still wet. I used it today for doing some arsenic chemistry. It's been cleaned very well, and you can actually disassemble it. Like, you can take off this plastic thing, this plastic vacuum hose adapter, and this makes cleaning a lot easier. And just got another one of these because you know the scales I'm working at, and 250 milliliters. It has to be emptied a few times at some of my large preparations. Here we got a 100 milliliter round bottom flask, also a 250 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask, which isn't in here because I did some arsenic chem in there and I still need to decontaminate it. One of these measuring cylinders, a 10 milliliter round bottom flask, which is really cute. I don't know if I've used it yet. Ah yes, I did. I used it in my chromal chloride video to get a great thumbnail. And also a 5 milliliter beaker. I got another one of these, but it disappeared. I don't know where it's gone. In there are also normally another 100 milliliter and another 50 milliliter beaker, but they still contain some mercury stuff and also need to be cleaned. 100 milliliter measuring cylinder for anything above 100 milliliters. I either use this one multiple times or just weigh the reagent for convenience, and another glass funnel. In here we got another big piece of glassware, which you've seen me use before. Let me quickly put that away, because I don't want to break any glassware for this video, because glassware is expensive. This is the 1 liter addition funnel. This was actually my first addition funnel before I even had a 1 liter round bottom flask. In the beginning I only had like a 250 milliliter Erlenmeyer flask and this 1 liter addition funnel. I don't know why, but it's been used often enough and it's a great investment. In the next box we got most of the electrical stuff and clamps. Take out that box. 3 plates to connect, well, what are these called? These long metal things you screw in there, to which you connect all of those clamps. Very useful, and it's better to have more of them than too little, because you will need them, and I definitely need to invest in more of those plates and more rods. This one actually weighs around 10 kilograms. Here we got a magnetic stirrer, only a magnetic stirrer, no heating. And this one is my heating mantle. The heating mantle has been used very often. It has included magnetic stirring and it's one of the best pieces of equipment out there. I guess it goes up to 360 degrees C, and it can be used for most preparations unless it's a very small scale. I do most of my preparations in a 1 liter flask, so this one is perfect, but for anything smaller I'm using the hot plate. In here you got another piece of equipment you haven't actually seen me use ever before, because this is a complete MMO titanium electrolysis set. It can be used for making chlorates, but sodium and potassium chlorate are illegal in Germany and I'm not going to make them. I might make some cesium chlorate or calcium chlorate in the future. Actually, potassium and sodium chlorate aren't illegal, but you're not allowed to make or own them above a 40% concentration. So if you have a solution of 40% sodium chloride, it should be perfectly legal, but anything above that, forget about it in Germany. And I'm not going to make it because it's not worth all of that trouble. Here we got a pH meter. Also haven't used it on video yet, but yeah, I might use it someday. And 2 of these aquarium compressors. You can attach 4 hoses to this one and 1 hose to this one. This one uses 2 watts and this one uses 10 watts maximum. Both very useful for chemistry like making lead acetate from lead, metal, acetic acid and air. Over here we got another neon sign transformer and thing in the pipe, which is an ozone generator. I'm not going to get that one out either. Here we got some calibration solution for pH electrode, and over here 2 completely new of these electrical things for the electrolysis cell, because the first one broke while I was trying to make some, what's called sodium bromate, but not with titanium electrodes because the bromine would destroy them, but with lead electrodes. The project turned out to fail, but I'm going to repeat it with other electrodes and I am going to get it to work. This one is another one of my best investments. It was a completely new IKA hot plate and it still looks pretty damn good. Also used yesterday and today for some preparations, and it only cost me 150 euros, completely new, and it's fully functional. I found it on eBay and directly jumped onto the deal, because a hot plate from this brand, completely new and still working, for 150, I couldn't say no to that. Also with one of these thermometers included, 3 stir fishes and a perfectly clean cable. What am I talking about? This is not really equipment, but can still be considered equipment. An entire box full of syringes. We've got some non-sterile 3 milliliter syringes. These seals are not acid resistant, as I found out, and even with 15% sulfuric acid they are going to dissolve. 50 milliliter syringe, some really thick needles, 3 milliliter syringes, should be about 50 of them, 20 milliliter syringes, more needles. I don't use them often, but they were cheap, so I just got them. And 3 milliliter syringes. Why do I have so many syringes? Well, I'm not using them for measuring out stuff, because when I'm doing anything at a 20 milliliter scale, I'm mainly using them as a mold for epoxy, because you can cut off that end, glue this end to a glass plate using UV resin. Afterwards, before gluing the ampule, fill it up with resin and let it cure. You get a mold, you get some sort of epoxy object which is perfectly polished on the sides. You only need to sand off this side, and afterwards polish it. As an example, this one was made using one of these 20 milliliter syringes. The thing right here was a little longer before, and it's actually very interesting because it's a cylinder shape. The ampule looks a lot bigger than you might think. It looks like it might be 1 centimeter in diameter, but if you look from the top, it looks much smaller. Big ampule, smaller ampule. The syringes are perfectly suited as epoxy molds. Here's what we use most often. Distillation bridge, one of those 90-degree bends which I used for making titanium tetrachloride. We also got this Kleisen adapter. I might use it again in the near future for making a very toxic reagent which can be used to make acetic anhydride, but I'm not going to do it in the normal way, in the conventional way. I'm going to make an apparatus which is more efficient, safer, and is going to produce bigger amounts of acetic anhydride one at a time. We got this burning tube. Oh, it's a little dirty right here. Might be from my last experiment with phosphorus. It's useful for making arsenic from arsenic containing ore, for making phosphorus chlorides and other stuff. It's surprisingly easy to clean, and after making titanium tetrachloride I actually thought that I would never be able to clean it again. But one wash with hydrochloric acid, one wash with soap, and was clean again. Hose adapters for this glass thing, for the distillation bridge. a condenser, a reflux condenser with a big bottom part and a smaller top part. This one is used for what is called, these extractors, Oxyacetylene extractor. Normal reflux condenser with the joint size almost all of my flasks got. And special Oxyacetylene extractor, because this is a high efficiency Oxyacetylene extractor. It has this normal Oxyacetylene extractor siphon in there, but it has a mantle. The solvents travel through the mantle to the top, go into the reflux condenser, condense, and travel downwards. While the solvents travel upwards, they are heating up the contents, and thereby the extraction is becoming more and more efficient, because hotter solvents dissolve more of whatever you want to dissolve. And over here we got a column. All of this is new equipment, most of which you haven't seen before, like ever. We got this flask. I'm soon going to show you what it's used for. And we got a drying pistol. I'm not going to explain it to you in this video, but I'm going to use it soon. The drying pistol actually connects to this flask, and therefore I got both of them. Two more pieces of equipment in this box are a powder addition funnel with a pressure equalization pipe. You have the screw in there and you can add powders using it, maybe even under an inert atmosphere. I haven't used it yet because I haven't had any preparation which involves this. And here we got a piece of glassware that can be used to transfer liquids to an apparatus. You put the liquid in here, goes through here, there are holes in there, and there's a second mantle in there. The liquid goes in there, goes up here, and afterwards flows into the apparatus, and no exchange of any atmospheric or gases in the apparatus takes place while using this. Here's the new condenser I just talked about. It arrived today. A 3-neck round bottom flask, 250 milliliter beaker made from ceramics, and in here are 8 drying tubes. Yes, 8 drying tubes might be a little too much, but let me have my 8 drying tubes. This one is another extractor. It's not a Oxyacetylene extractor because it doesn't have a siphon, but the solvents travel up here through this outer pipe, condense up here. Whatever you put in there, the solvents are going to dissolve, and the liquid is going to travel back up here and into the pipe down to be redistilled. So it serves the same purpose as a Oxyacetylene extractor. Haven't used it yet. It has a volume of 1 liter. And tell me down in the comments what you might have for ideas to use it for. This one's a little boring and I'm only going to cover it briefly, but in here we got a lot of empty bottles. These bottles and also these bottles used for a centrifuge. I don't have a centrifuge yet, but I have these bottles. It can be used for tiny amounts of stuff, which I've actually never had before. But yeah, it's okay. This one can be used for flammable solvents, and this one has a Teflon liner in its cap. We're soon going to fill it up completely with bromine. At least not completely, but you get it. I hate having to make chemicals over and over again, and I want a lot of bromine, so this bottle is perfectly suited. And here we are. This is the last box. This one would normally also contain my vacuum chamber, but currently it's being used. I'm going to show it to you, but let's cover these 3 things first. You got a vacuum pump used for drying stuff in the vacuum chamber and for vacuum filtrations. You got a huge bottle for vacuum filtrations. It has a volume of 3 liters. Haven't used it yet. It's a new piece of equipment, very cool. Still need to get one of these rubber things to connect the big filtration funnel. Also new, just cleaned it today and it just arrived today at my place. Yeah, I hope I can put it to good use. Definitely saves a lot of time. Just imagine having to empty That's 250 milliliter vacuum filtration flask for 12 times, and you can do it in just a single run. This is the vacuum chamber I talked about. Can be used for drying stuff, and it can also be used to make some nice plasma. It's currently being used to dry this green stuff right here, which is a very toxic copper arsenic pigment called Paris green. I'm drying it. I hope it will be dry tomorrow so I can upload the video, and you should stay tuned for that one, because Paris green is really damn cool. It's toxic pigment and has this very nice green color. This one is not needed for the average home lab, but it's a rotary tumbler and I'm using it for polishing stuff. It currently contains rice. I'm using it for polishing plastics and metal. Not really uploading that to YouTube because it's not a hobby of mine, but it's very useful, and it could also be used to make very fine metal powders. I won't use it for that because I have very fine metal powders, but it could be used for that. Also, here's that long glass pipe. You've seen me use these high pressure ampules. I'm making them from this borosilicate tube. It was 2 meters long when I got it. Also thinner borosilicate tube. This isn't borosilicate. It's a very long tube, 2 meters in total, and this one has a wall thickness of 1.5 millimeters, and the other one has a wall thickness of 1 millimeter. This one's a little thinner, like 0.5 milliliters and not milliliters, millimeters, and it's also made from normal glass, not borosilicate. Although this isn't equipment, I'm still going to show it to you. An empty bottle of sulfuric acid. It was nice to have these, but now it's illegal to have 96% sulfuric acid, and well, I'm just having it here as decoration, the empty bottle, and a lot of datura seeds. Let's move on to the other equipment I have, which is not really lab equipment, but it's still very useful. Not typical glassware stuff, but useful. Here are scales and cleaning equipment. This is a scale that goes up to 3 kilograms and it has an accuracy of 0.1 grams. It can be used for large batches, and it's what I use in most videos. I also got another scale over here, which has an accuracy of 0.001 grams or milligram, and goes up to 50 grams. It's completely new because I broke this one. It hasn't had an accuracy of 0.005 grams, but some isopropanol spilled onto it, and because it had a touch screen, I wasn't able to calibrate it anymore. So we got this one, haven't used it yet, but it's useful. This one can be used for small amounts, and this one can be used for large amounts. And most of the time using this one because I hate doing any preparation and ending up with an amount that you can barely see. And yeah, that's it for the scales. We got another measuring cup, one of these test tube clamps. You can hold the test tube with these into a Bunsen burner without burning yourself. All sorts of calibration weights, brushes for cleaning glassware, and this one can be used for cleaning that burning tube, funnels, glass stirring rods, 1 milliliter pipette, one of these things that are used for scratching and afterwards breaking glass, metal spatulas. This one is one of these, what are these called? A water jet pump for pulling a vacuum using water coming from the tap. We got also some chloroethane. Yeah, haven't found any use for the chloroethane yet. Besides trying to make diethyl magnesium, which spectacularly failed. We got HPLC vials with a volume of 1.5 milliliters. I dropped the box and one already broke. Had been 100 of these containers in the beginning. Now it's only 99. Glass pipettes, remember, always buy in bulk. You don't want to clean these. These are 250. Are these actually 250? Yeah, 250 pieces of pipettes, glass pipettes. So I can actually just throw them away afterwards. I clean them after using only water, but sometimes they get dirty and you don't want to use them again. And over here we got some useful reagents. What you got here is iodine potassium iodide solution, which can be used to test for starch. Small amount of copper sulfate solution, which I always use to neutralize white phosphorus. We also got iron 2 plus and iron 3 plus solution, which is used to test for cyanide. Methylene blue solution. I actually don't know why I prepared this, probably only because it looked cool. I have 100 grams of pure methylene blue, so I can prepare that solution whenever I want. And potassium iodide starch paper. It can be used to test for oxidating agents like chlorine, bromine, and not for iodine because it contains potassium iodide and starch. Small scale chemicals I'm not going to cover. A heat gun, which can be used to remove glass that is stuck. Also got this Bunsen burner when high temperatures are needed. Lots and lots of lighters. I've broken many lighters in my life. I went through at least 3 of these handheld Bunsen burners. Many more lighters right here. And this lighter actually contains chloroethane. Don't ask me why I filled it with chloroethane, but I did. A lot of lighter gas and also many matches. I bought 100 of these boxes a year ago for €3 and I already used up like 90 of them. Besides that, we got this melting furnace. I'm not going to open up this package now because I don't want to take it down from the cabinet. You've seen it in one of my videos. Very useful for making metal granules and also very useful for making cesium metal. The cheapest way of storing chemicals, small amounts, are ampules. They can only be used one time though, and after you break them, they can't be used again. These are 10 milliliter ampules. I only got one box of them, which contains about 200 of these at the beginning. Also 5 milliliter ampules. I have more than 1,000 of these in total. Reagent bottles. It's cheaper to buy in bulk. Also with these. Very useful. Just got them 2 days ago. And they can be used for most chemicals. And also test tubes. I might need some more because this box is nearly empty. I'm not throwing them away every time, but they break very often. If bigger ampules are needed, I always go with a 100 milliliter round-bottle flask because they are very useful. You need an oxyacetylene torch to be able to work with thick glass though, because it's borosilicate and you can't just work with it using a normal propane burner unless you use pure oxygen. This one contains sulfur trioxide and grew these beautiful large crystals. Safety equipment every lab should have are lab coats, gloves, safety goggles, a respirator, and I would even say a gas mask, but you must look into the papers of the manufacturer what the gas mask filter actually protects from, because if you only wear a mask that doesn't protect you from bromine and you're working with bromine, it could end up being dangerous because you inhale something that you haven't considered. I'll try to keep this as short as possible because it's fucking hot up here and I want to go into the pool. But let's talk about what the average home lab needs, because you can't consider my equipment average because no lab actually has all of that advanced stuff like a powder addition funnel and such. Basic. You only enjoy chemistry like every once in a while, don't want to spend a lot of money on it, and certainly don't see a future in this hobby, but still want to experiment. Get test tubes, get a small Bunsen burner, can even be a handheld one, but don't use household equipment. Don't use like a marmalade jar. Don't use household equipment. Don't use like a jam jar or some glass you might be drinking out. More advanced home lab. Get a hot plate. A cheap hot plate, a very cheap hot plate. It does not need to have included stirring. It can have it if you want, but it's more expensive. Some beakers. And also Erlenmeyer flasks and a reflux condenser. This is more advanced home chemistry. You should also consider getting a distillation bridge, because if you're into chemistry and you're going to continue it, you're going to need a distillation bridge at some point. More advanced chemistry. Get a heating mantle or get a hot plate with included stirring. Also the heating mantle with included stirring. Because if you have included stirring, this opens up doors to all sorts of preparations which you wouldn't be able to do before, like chlorinating some random stuff in a round bottom flask and afterwards distilling it. It's matters of safety. You don't want to be distilling any dangerous reagent without the necessary equipment, because you can end up destroying the equipment, spilling the reagent everywhere and poisoning yourself. An even more advanced lab should also have a vacuum filtration system, because it speeds up waiting times by a lot. If you want to become even more advanced, get a vacuum chamber. I wouldn't get one made from plastic again, because it looks great, but it can only be used for aqueous chemistry because of this metal thing at the top. If you try like some DCM containing stuff in there, it is going to destroy the plastics. And even if you are doing aqueous chemistry, whatever you try in there, if it contains hydrochloric acid, it's going to destroy the metal threads. If your home chemistry is even more advanced, you should also get a Oxyacetylene extractor or build from there. Get whatever you want, build your home chemistry setup how you like it, but consider one thing. Don't use food jars, and also consider that you might want to expand it and settle on one joint size which is available to you. Let's say you get glass from China and afterwards you get glass from a local shop or from your own country. It might be a different joint size, and you can save a lot of money if you don't have glass from all sorts of countries with different joint sizes, because you need to get adapters and it can become expensive very quickly. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, make sure to drop me one of these and consider subscribing for more stuff like this in the future. I wish all of you a great day. Until next time. Bye.